Hello, welcome to the Nerdy Folks Podcast, a conversation about the nerdy things we love and the things that matter most. My name is Matthew Seifel Anderson, and I am flying solo again today. Normally my wife Katie joins me, but today I'm flying solo like I said, but that's okay. I won't be alone for long. We are starting a new series on tabletop gaming today, and I have a great interview with my friend Jeremy Owen from Adepticon. Jeremy invited me to go to Adepticon, which is like the Mac Daddy of tabletop wargaming conventions. It was a ton of fun, so let's get right to it. Here's my interview with Jeremy Owen. I'm hanging out at Adepticon with my good friend Jeremy Owen. Jeremy, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, man.
Jeremy and I reconnected, and he invited me to come to Adepticon down here in Chicago. And it is a world that is very nerdy, but at the same time, it's kind of a foreign world for me because it's all about tabletop gaming. So, Jeremy, can you just unpack Adepticon for those who are maybe uninitiated like I was?
Yeah, for sure. Adepticons that happen, the San Diego Comic-Con, this is like the big con for comics. It's like there's all these different cons that happen, but there's the one big one. So what Adepticon is for tabletop wargaming is kind of like what the San Diego Comic-Con is. It is the big convention for some of the biggest tabletop games. So this is going to be like Warhammer 40K, Age of Sigmar, all those kind of like the whole Warhammer world. They're actually doing their international competitions, tournaments for Warhammer. AMG has got all their games there. So the AMG games are like Star Wars Legion, Shatterpoint, Marvel Crisis Protocol, X-Wing. So basically the convention, if you walk into it, yesterday when we walked into it, there's like all of these massive halls with just table after table, hundreds of people playing these tabletop war games in a tournament style. And there's, I want to say there's 4 different convention halls where different brands or different games in the tabletop gaming world are being played. So it's just crazy. You have the games, you have the exhibition where you can see all the biggest painters, and there's a huge international painting competition called the Golden Demon, which is like the competition for miniature painters internationally. So the best painters in the world are entering their stuff. It's really cool.
I'll say I was pretty blown away when I first walked into the hall, just seeing all the tables of people playing. And what really struck me was how each station where games are happening has this amazing miniature terrain. It's like little mini worlds. It might be a dystopian city that's like destroyed. It might be a high fantasy thing with like rolling greens and hills and rocks and stuff. I mean, cityscapes, just, it's so amazing.
Yeah.
It just blew me away. And it was very cool walking through the convention center and hearing people speaking in other languages. You've got teams that are there in like matching t-shirts.
Yep.
There's one team we met yesterday that their whole team found matching bright yellow jumpsuits.
Yeah.
So you can see them from anywhere at the convention center, but it's the real deal if you're a competitive gamer.
It is, yeah. I mean, and if you're not familiar with tabletop wargaming, I mean, it's really cool. These, like you were mentioning, these tables of custom terrain. I mean, basically what you're doing is you're playing on a game board that's either 3 foot by 3 foot or 6 foot by 3 foot. So a huge gaming board, but it's not like a board game. It's custom built, 3D printed, sometimes styrofoam, sometimes wood, sometimes whatever, crafted terrain with these little miniature models that you play on, and you're basically battling in different scenarios, like you said, on either in the fantasy world or in the superhero world or in the Star Wars world. I mean, it's so cool.
And there's a lot of strategy, and the rules are pretty intense.
Yes.
And some players are just like geniuses with the rules.
Yes. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, if you think of chess and then a game of paintball, and then hobbying and modeling, and you smash all those together onto a table 6x3, then you've got tabletop wargaming. I mean, it's all of the above. It's super, super cool.
It's like gentlemen's paintballing.
There we go. Although if you listen, it's not all gentlemen that are down there. People are playing to win at these tournaments.
They want the Golden Demon.
They do, right? That's right.
Although the Golden Demon, that's not for winning the games.
Right.
That's a separate competition.
Yes.
Which is a great segue because you yourself have gotten a bit into this side of it also. This is a competition that has to do with painting and the artistry of working with the models, right?
Yes. Yep.
Why don't you break that down a little bit? Because that's a whole world in and of itself.
It is, yeah. And I think that's what's so cool about this type of game is there's strategy to it. Obviously, there's community around it because, there's all these different people that are coming from different places that love this game. But there's the hobby aspect to it because when you get into these games, let's say you buy a starter set for one of these games, you open the box and it's a whole bunch of little plastic pieces in plastic sprues. You got to cut them out. You got to put them together, and then once you put them together, you got to paint them, and then you paint them. So you have some people that do that, and they paint them just so they can get them on the table to play. But then you have a whole other side of the hobby that people just get into it for the painting, and some of these painters are just incredible, and they'll spend weeks sometimes months just on one piece for this for competitions like the Golden Demon. Now similar to cons, you have lots of miniature painting competitions, but the Golden Demon is basically recognized as the top standard of miniature painting competitions. It's right up there. It is hosted by one particular company, by Games Workshop, but it is anybody who's anybody in painting, that's achieved the highest level is going to be competing in the Golden Demon.
So just to give a little perspective, we went up to the area where they have displays of the entries, people trying to win this award. And we probably walked in a line, because it was pretty full of people. We walked in a line for like an hour, just looking at all the entries. That's how many there were. And there were some seriously amazing paint jobs on models.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, you might think, just painting on a little piece of plastic, doesn't take very much. But the level of skill to achieve some of the colors, the blending, how smooth it is, the creativity that goes into a lot of times, guys that are entering into this, they're not only using just the standard model, but they're actually modifying it in some unique, creative way, and they're building a small diorama around it and putting it into an environment that they've created. So, I mean, it's technical painting skill, but it's creativity as well too, and it's really, really neat.
So you've gotten into some of this with your own sets, and even gotten to the point where you've done some commission work.
Yes.
Explain the process when you're painting a miniature. Are you using a magnifying glass for a lot of the time?
I didn't start, but I definitely over time realized I needed to see a little bit better. So, yeah, there's all, different painters have different approaches to it. I found using those kind of high-powered reading glasses works really well. I just put those on. It's basically like little magnifying glasses on your eyes. Yeah. Some models are really small and you're doing really detailed work. Other models you're using an airbrush for. They're slightly larger models. You don't necessarily need to have that magnification. But being able to see well, having good light, having a great setup where you can easily access all the materials that you need makes it a really, enjoyable experience.
What would someone need if they want to get into that?
Boy, yeah. I would say it can sometimes be an intimidating hobby. Someone says, "Well, this game looks really cool," and they find out, "Oh shoot, I need to like cut all these pieces out of sprues and put them together, and then paint them." But really, when it comes down to it, buying a starter box of a genre that you're interested in. There's a bunch of stuff out there. Like I said, Star Wars. You can paint the heroes. You can paint the troopers. You can do something like Warhammer, where you're in more of kind of like a I don't know, sci-fi type fantasy world. Necromunda, which is kind of it's probably not steampunk, but it reminds me of steampunk a little bit. There's one called, I'm going to say it wrong now, but it's basically, I won't say it because I don't remember the exact name, but it's a bunch of mechs. So it's like these mech things. So picking, a genre that's interesting to you, buying a box, and just getting together with someone saying, hey, I'd love to be able to learn how to do this. And I think that's one of the things that's great is there's great community around this. If you walk into a game store in your community, and they have them all over, game stores all over the U.S., and you say, I want to get into this game. Could you help me learn how to just put some things together and do some basic painting? I'm sure you have a bunch of people that are like, yes, I'll help you out. And that's your beginning point. And it's really, really fun. So, yeah.
I've definitely picked up on that community vibe being at Adepticon as a new person, just asking the stupid questions. And we did some game demos, and people are just so friendly. They just love to teach because they're passionate about this. Take us back to kind of your origins with some of this, and back when you were like a kid. How far back does this hobby go for you?
Yeah, man, that's a great question. Well, there's kind of two pieces to it. So the part where I started painting, that's relatively recent, but being a part of community around board gaming and around, particularly for me, things like Star Wars and then D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, as a kid. I grew up, obviously we grew up in the same hometown, so we knew each other as kids. But I grew up in a pretty broken home. I had a stepdad that was abusive, and it was tough for me finding my place in middle school, then into junior high. I just felt like I didn't fit in. There wasn't that. I wasn't the cool kid, in any way. And getting into Star Wars, some of D&D, some of the gaming community, Magic cards was a big thing back then. I started to find a community where I had a place, and it was really cool. Actually, some of those people, there was some connections with this community, even through church, through youth group, which is how we connected through the youth group. And being able to be a part of that community, but that also bridged me into a faith community was so powerful, And so, I mean, the origins go all the way back there for that. And then I think over the years, I started to get busy. I started to work. We were traveling a lot. And I was like, man, I would really love to get back into this hobby, And I remember we work overseas often. So I remember coming back, and I was in Roseville, Minnesota, and I went to the Source Comics, and I was just like looking at all the people playing games, and I'm like, oh, it just brings back these warm, fuzzy feelings, And then I got back into it during COVID. Just said, hey, this is an opportunity to get back into a hobby that I like. I'm going to try the painting piece. I loved it. And it's built out a whole nother community for me, even overseas where we work. We work in UAE, near Dubai. And I've just made so many friends. Back to Games is the local game shop there. And I've made loads of friends, Emirati friends from the UK, from Poland, from Germany. It's been so cool to see that community, even abroad through all this as well.
It's a pretty unique opportunity you have being in the UAE. You've mentioned that's very so many people from all over the earth, literally living there. So that's really, really amazing. I think your story I think your story is a story that so many people can relate to. And I would encourage you, if you're struggling out there, connect with some people in person. Isolation is just unhealthy for us. And I think that connecting in person really, it's going to show you that you're not alone.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to have someone to talk to, someone to go to, and just a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You know, connect and play some games. So I'm feeling inspired being at Adepticon to pick something up and run with it and get myself into this aspect of the nerd world I've known a lot about tabletop gaming. I've got friends who are into it, but I myself have just never like taken the plunge beyond like an occasional game night here or there. So yeah, it's been a ton of fun hanging out at Adepticon. Yo, DJ! Again, thank you, Jeremy, for being willing to sit down for an interview and for inviting me to Adepticon. It was a great experience. I'd love to hear what your favorite tabletop board game is and about your experience hanging out with buds and what that's meant for you. We've got more episodes coming on this topic. If you want to connect with us, head over to nerdyfolks.com. You can connect with us there. And until next time, love you, take care, God bless, bye-bye.